Following that breaking news in the NFL where the Panthers are cutting ties with quarterback Baker Mayfield, our NFL insider Jonathan Jones reports that the Panthers are planning to place the former number one overall pick on waivers. And Mayfield, of course, the odd man out there in Cleveland for the Browns after he acquired Deshaun Watson from Houston. Now it looks like he'll be on the move again after a 1-5 start in Carolina. The Panthers are expected to go with Sam Darnold back at QB1 this week against the Seahawks with P.J. Walker as the backup. And you see the numbers, they have not been the case or a good case for Baker Mayfield since taking over. Just one win in those 6 games as a starter. Completion percentage, not what you want to see, along with that passer rating there. And touchdowns and turnovers, 7 for 7. By the way, those numbers second worst in the league, above Zach Wilson, who happens to be on a winning team for the Jets. All right, Jonathan Jones joining us here for that news. And JJ, your reaction to that with Baker out the door in Carolina. Didn't see it happening, but it is today.
Well, got some word earlier today that it was going to be P.J. Walker backing up Sam Darnold. Of course, interim head coach Steve Wilks made the announcement last week going into the bye that it was going to be Sam Darnold getting the start after his performance against the Denver Broncos returning from the high ankle sprain. And then, of course, P.J. Walker was dealing with a high ankle sprain. And so he comes back after the bye and he gets to back up Darnold. What does that mean for Baker Mayfield? Well, look, he got benched twice this year already by interim coach Steve Wilks. You got 2 quarterbacks that you like more than Baker Mayfield, a guy who we showed the stats earlier, struggled so much throughout this season and continued getting balls batted at the line, didn't show much athleticism. He is by far the third most athletic quarterback on the Panthers depth chart. And if you want to say he is the least athletic quarterback on the Panthers depth chart, that's another way of saying it. And so he just wasn't going to see the field unless there were injuries to both of those quarterbacks in the closing month of the season. The Panthers still competing for a playoff spot. And so because of that, Mayfield, again, unless there were injuries, he was not going to go out there on the field. The draft pick compensation had already been locked in. I wrote about that yesterday on CBSSports.com, how there was a conditional pick. It could have been a 4th-round pick if he played 70% of the snaps. He was never going to make it to 70% of the snaps. So now it's a 5th-round pick that officially the Carolina Panthers will be sending to the Cleveland Browns. But a fall from grace certainly for the former number 1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield.
When you look at it, even going back to 2020 when he was at the Browns, you look at the numbers, his completion percentage, his passer rating, the turnovers have gone up. Everything has trended downwards. If we're looking at his future here, he's still relatively young. Is there one for Baker here with everybody pretty much set when it comes to their QB1s across the league?
Yeah, pretty much, except that one team, right, Brandon? That one team out in the Bay, the San Francisco 49ers, having lost not 1 but 2 franchise quarterbacks already this season. When you look out there in San Francisco, yes, they are starting Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, and I don't think there's any question he is going to be the starting quarterback when the San Francisco 49ers play next. They signed Josh Johnson to the practice squad. Okay, they got a veteran there that they can rely on. But Baker Mayfield, listen, I'm not over here saying that he is any savior or anything like that for the Niners, right? I mean, he brought his welcome with the Cleveland Browns, and his time there was done once they decided their pursuit of Deshaun Watson would end in a fully guaranteed nearly $250 million contract. But now he has found no home in Carolina, and really it wasn't going to work out from the jump. I also want to be clear here, Brandon. He was a Matt Rule pick. Matt Rule was heavily pushing for Baker Mayfield in Carolina, just like he was pushing for Sam Darnold in Carolina after the Panthers struck out on Matthew Stafford a couple years ago. That's beside the point, but an important point to note nonetheless. But the Niners, when you look at that schedule right there, listen, Baker Mayfield's going to have to, make it to the Niners on the waiver claim list, and they're a little bit lower. He's due about $1.4 or so million this season. So any team that's claiming him would have to pick up the rest of his guaranteed contract for this season. He's not under any sort of contractual obligation for 2023, so that's it. The 49ers do have that amount of cap space. They would be able to bring him under and in the cap. And then when would he be able to play? Well, he's healthy enough to play. He's just not been playing very well. But one thing we know about Kyle Shanahan, what has been proven over the years, whether he has a Nick Mullins or a C.J. Beathard or Jimmy Garoppolo, quarterbacks all play extremely well in his system. It is the most quarterback-friendly system in the NFL today, really in recent memory. And so you're going to roll with Brock Purdy right now. maybe you're going to claim Baker Mayfield off of waivers if somebody doesn't skip ahead of you. But it is very interesting, Brandon. This is after the trade deadline, which took place in late October, early November. So the 49ers couldn't trade for anyone at the quarterback position. And so it is fascinating that Jimmy Garoppolo gets a season-ending injury, and Baker Mayfield, who was almost certain to be the third-string quarterback this week behind Sam Darnold and P.J. Walker, is now released from the Carolina Panthers, a team that just happened to do business with the San Francisco 49ers, with that man Christian McCaffrey in the trade right before the deadline. So I'm not saying, it's just interesting.
The football gods playing games with us this late in the season there. But let me ask you, if for this way, is it worth bringing in a Baker Mayfield based on what we saw from Brock Purdy yesterday? Because Fred Warner said, hey, look, he's been practicing against the #1 defense, talk about the Niners defense in practice all week, and you saw what he did there. Why would you bring in that chemistry with the Baker Mayfield? Is it even worth it at this point based on what we saw yesterday from them?
Hey, listen, I think it's a completely fair question. In fact, when I was chasing down this story earlier today, I had a league executive who is familiar with Baker Mayfield say it's not a slam dunk that Baker Mayfield is better than Brock Purdy right now. And so, agree or disagree, I would pretty much agree. It is not a slam dunk that he's better than Brock Purdy. But the Niners are down 2 quarterbacks right now. This is a team that, with Kyle Shanahan, with Deebo Samuel, with this receiving group, with especially this defense, with Christian McCaffrey, if you get serviceable quarterback play, this is a team that can be in the NFC title game, that can win the NFC, that can be in the Super Bowl. Do I think that Baker Mayfield is a Super Bowl winning quarterback? He certainly has not played that way at all. Certainly has not. But if there is one coach who can turn it around for Baker Mayfield, it's a Kyle Shanahan. So you just got to have some quarterbacks. And they have Brock Purdy, they have Josh Johnson. Maybe they add Baker Mayfield.
It's very rare we talk about a #1 overall pick and Mr. Irrelevant in the same conversation. But, of course, it has to be San Francisco, who lost their first 2 starting quarterbacks. We'll see how it pans out there. Jonathan Jones here with the news about Baker possibly released there for the Panthers, soon to be released there from Carolina. Taking a look at it from San Francisco's side, though, we saw yesterday getting the W there with the rookie out of Iowa State and Purdy. Maybe you flirt with Baker Mayfield, a chance to see. We talked about it. I said the football gods playing games with us here, but you look at their schedule there, still winnable games. You got the Bucs in Week 14, who's under 500. Then you got the Seahawks, which will be interesting on Thursday night in that division. And then you got the Raiders, who've gotten hot, and the Cardinals back in division play for Week 18. The question is, will Baker be the quarterback, or maybe Brock Purdy holding down the fort the rest of the season?
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.